drive. Tatum the finish. It is banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with another episode of You Got Boston. After the Celtics snap a 5-game win streak, 116-101 loss to the Milwaukee Bucks after a really hot start where I felt like, okay, here they go. They take a quick 6-point lead entering the second quarter. They hold that lead, extend it entering halftime, and then just an abysmal third quarter where they're outscored by 14. It felt like a magnet ball game for Kyle Kuzma, Bobby Portis, Kevin Porter. The Bucks just are just on in this game, and the Celtics were off. And sometimes you don't want to oversimplify it. I felt like there were some lapses, execution lapses defensively, maybe some moments where looks were a little bit too easy to come by, and then that kind of got those players going. And multiple players had their best game of the season. Kyle Kuzma, season high points tonight. So from the Bucks standpoint, a lot to like in a time where there's been a lot of tumult around this team, a lot of discourse around the locker room. Is Giannis happy? Is Giannis going to be staying? Is he getting traded? Like, it's not an easy time to be in Milwaukee. They lost 10 of 12. No Giannis, still dealing with that calf injury, but they pull out a big win against a surging Celtics team. And for the Celtics, this is a game you definitely wanted because you've beaten better teams in recent weeks here. You're coming off of 3 days of rest. You have another couple of days of rest here before the Pistons, and they were heavy favorites. I think they were 9.5-point favorites entering this game, and on paper we're the better team, which hasn't always been the case this season. And that is the nature of the NBA. The Celtics have beaten the Knicks and the Pistons and the Cavs, and have had some really good games against playoff opponents. And at the same time, they've dropped games against the Brooklyn Nets and the Utah Jazz, and now a Milwaukee team without Giannis. And that's what makes the league so unpredictable. It's what makes having a League Pass subscription so worthwhile. And it's why you can never really tell what's going to happen in any given night. So for me, as I watch this game, sometimes when I'm watching a game and the Celtics start to blow a lead or the game starts to get out of hand, there's a very clear and obvious reason why. On first watch, I honestly didn't have something substantive. It just felt like, okay, the Celtics are missing every shot. They missed 19 threes in a row in that second half. And at the same time, Milwaukee is just on an absolute heater. And that's sometimes what it is, sometimes as simple as it goes. And I do feel like there were some late closeouts, some defensive miscommunications that maybe enabled those heaters to begin, because once these are all NBA players. Like Bobby Portis Jr., he's not the best player in the league, but when he gets going, he is hot. And he's had a lot of these kind of big time performances against the Celtics, especially during the regular season. And the Celtics have struggled in Milwaukee in recent years. I think they've lost 3 of their last 4 games in Milwaukee here. So a tough loss for them. It snaps a 5-game win streak. They dropped to 15-10 on the season. We'll see by the end of the night where they are in the standings, but definitely will drop down from the 3rd seed where they were entering this game. Normally after these games, I like to pull out a lot of different performances and things that stood out to me. And there were some nice moments. I thought Nemias Queta had some nice effort plays, specifically down the stretch where you could have kind of given up and he kept balls alive, giving them multiple opportunities, and they just couldn't capitalize, which was noteworthy because even on a second Sam Hauser 3 or a layup attempt, like nothing was falling, and it just felt like, okay, it's just not their night, right? If once you start missing layups and shots around the rim, it's just not your night. So that's how I felt about this game. I don't want to say it's a wash because it's easy to just say that after every bad loss. But I'm not going to start pulling positive takeaways. Jaylen Brown, another 30-point game for him on 10 of 18 shooting. Like, he has just been Mr. Consistent for the Celtics. I could probably talk about that for a whole little stretch here. He's coming off of an Eastern Conference Player of the Week award, where he won that award for the first time this season, 5th time of his career. Sorry, he was 10 of 17 from the field, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, couple of turnovers. I think he generally gave them what they needed tonight. But the real thing that I walked away with, if I'm going to be encouraged by something in this game, I sound like a broken record because we've talked about this quite a bit this season, but it's Jordan Walsh. And Jordan Walsh, over his last 4 games, he's averaging 17 points per game. He's shooting 79% from the field, which is ridiculous. Tonight, he was 3 or 4 from 3. Before the Lakers game a couple days ago, he had never had more than 2 threes in a game. He was 4 or 5 from 3 in that one, 3 or 4 tonight. In the first half, he has 18 points on 7 of 7 shooting, finishes the game with 20 points, so he was not much of an offensive factor in the second half. But it just got me thinking that entering the season, a lot of Celtics fans wanted to see the Celtics team tank because they wanted them to be able to add a player via the draft that was going to be a real kind of like big time impact player. And I think they might have found that impact player, and it's somebody they drafted 2 years ago. It's Jordan Walsh. And it sounds kind of ridiculous to say because he is not somebody that came in with like super high expectations. And I think his first year he's in Maine and he's good in Maine, but he's not showing flashes of anything crazy. Second year, he's mostly accruing DMPs on the bench. And I asked Derek White about kind of Jordan Walsh's emergence when I was in DC last week. And he pretty much said, he didn't have an opportunity for the first few years and now he has one and he's capitalizing. And it's hard. A lot of guys don't really have a real chance and he didn't have one. And I was just watching him defensively in this game because Joe Mazzulla recently said he's playing kind of unscreenable defense. And there were stretches in this game where I was like, he is actually an unscreenable basketball player. And I actually didn't think this was like his best defensive game ever. I'll be curious to see the defensive numbers. It was really more the team than him. But I was just honing in on him because I've just been so excited by his evolution and what he's able to bring to this team and what he's showcasing he can do. So I started honing in on him and I was like, this is incredible. Like, obviously, Austin Reeves said it last week, but he has the potential of becoming one of the best defenders in this league. And I think we're really starting to see that. And it helps that he has fresh legs. Like, he doesn't have the mileage that a Jalen Brown right besides him has. And it helps that he's coming in with the number one focus and task of defending, which is great. But he's doing other things too, 8 rebounds, 3 steals. There was a stretch during this, when he first started playing where he was defending really well, but he was kind of a zero on offense. And I thought to myself, you know what? That's totally fine because Jason Tatum's coming back. You're going to have Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard. Cade has proven that he can be an offensive threat as well. So what if Jordan Walsh doesn't score ever and he's over 2 every night? Like that's not his job, right? But at the end of the day, margins of error are pretty thin in the NBA, and you don't want to have zeros on the court in any department the same way you don't want to have any defensive liabilities. You also don't want to have any offensive liabilities. And this last couple of weeks have really shown me that he might actually have an offensive game that is far more involved than I realized. And I don't know if anybody really realized what he had in his bag. I mean, some really tough finishes, jumpers, shots around the basket, drives, contested drives, pulling up for three with a hand in his face, like looking smooth, looking confident. Like, I don't know. I didn't see this coming on the offensive end. I'll be the first to admit that. I covered him a lot. It's probably a few players I've covered more than I've covered Jordan Walsh. I spent a lot of my rookie season as a reporter was his rookie season as a player, and so I spent a lot of time in Maine, interviewing him, watching his games up there. I've been to the summer league, the last 2 summer leagues here that he was at, and obviously kind of night and day for him last summer league versus this one, which maybe was a little bit of foreshadowing for how the year was going to go. But even myself, I would say I was probably in the top 5 or 10% as far as like public perception of Jordan Walsh's career potential. Like, I didn't see this coming. And so a night like tonight, this was a tough loss. Honestly, I didn't really enjoy this game. We did a whole post game show on it, and it was hard to pin down like exactly what it was that went wrong. And you're not going to freak out about a loss when they've won 10 of 12. Like, it's inevitable. It happens. It's hard to be consistent every single night. And so that's where my head went after this one. Obviously, you have 4 games in a row like this, or 5 and 7 games, then you have to kind of change your tune. But that's why when I was thinking about my You Got Boston podcast, I was thinking, what am I going to talk about today? I can make my list of like 5 or 6 things and maybe go through, and, Kate had some nice effort plays, and Jalen and Derek's found an early rhythm there and all of that. And, they got so cold. Like, Peyton and Sam both were like, I think combined 0 for 16 or 17 in the second half. So certainly, like, that is something that I could have spent this episode on. But yeah, I really just wanted to talk Jordan Walsh because if this run here is legit, if this last month of basketball is who he is and who he's capable of, becoming in this league and building off of that, because again, he's just 21 and he just has a month of NBA experience of like real rotation minutes, then maybe his ceiling's even higher. Like, maybe he's a Jaden McDaniels type player. Like, again, he's 21 years old. A lot of guys are still in college at this age. A lot of guys are getting drafted at this age and, taking a year to acclimate. And when the Celtics went ahead and drafted him, like, that was the upside. He was a 5-star recruit out of high school who had a tough 1 year at Arkansas, and nobody really knew exactly how he was going to pan out, right? The draft is kind of a crapshoot. And if you would ask front offices 6 weeks ago to redraft that was 2023 draft, like, very few people would have thought that Jordan Walsh was a pick they should regret making. And so it's just amazing how opportunity meets, hard work and everything that happened with Tatum's injury and the fact that they really needed somebody to assume that role. And I do think it actually helped him that Josh Minot and Ugo were early on getting minutes and opportunities to start games doing what he can do, right? Like defending and crashing and playing with a lot of energy. And now it seems like he is more like I don't I hate to like I actually hate how much I end up inadvertently comparing these guys, but it seems like he might even be the most skilled or ready to go of the trio. Obviously, there's things that Josh does as a small ball five, and he's been shooting lights out. So Josh is really kind of bringing his own skill set to the table, which has been impressive this season. But I don't know. I keep just looking at Jordan's game, and this was a perfect example where even tonight, and I like that was, maybe not the Celtics' best game. He finishes with a stat line where you're like, okay, like this is starting to feel like he was a first round draft pick and he's a real impact player and he's a player of the future, maybe. And they have him under contract next year and they have opportunities to extend him, which would obviously be a huge win if this level of play is sustainable. But yeah, it was really fun to watch. And I just keep thinking, what does a lineup look like where it's maybe Jason, Jalen, Jordan, Kada, Derek, or sub and Payton. Like you just have more flexibility now because already entering tonight, and this won't hold, but entering tonight, that 5-man unit of Derek White, Payton Pritchard, Jalen Brown, Jordan Walsh, and Amish Kada was the number one 5-man unit in the entire NBA as it relates to net rating. I think they were a plus 22. And so that's a great sign. Now you throw in Jason Tatum in the mix, like he has been such a plus minus god since entering the league and really the last few years he's always ranked near the top of the list there, and obviously all the things that he does, defend, score, rebound, you name it, he does it. Like they're going to have a lot more flexibility here. So I don't know if Jordan ever turns into this player if it's not for the Tatum injury. That's the kind of the weird nature of the NBA, is that a lot of times it takes something bad happening for somebody else to get an opportunity, whether that's like you look at Ime Udoka and his suspension, and that precipitates Joe Mazzulla's rise as one of the NBA's elite head coaches, right? Like a lot of times when bad things happen, you don't know what it's going to result in the moment. Obviously, those are two different circumstances, and injuries obviously very different, and that was a terrible thing that happened. And hopefully Jason Tatum's on the mend and kind of nearing a return, but it did kind of open the door for somebody to step up in a way that maybe was never going to happen. Maybe Jordan was going to have to go somewhere else and blossom into that style of player. I mean, you look at Aaron Nesmith, you look all the time where a player is kind of rotting away on the bench in one place or playing, struggling through some difficult minutes in one place, and then they head elsewhere and they play a lot better, right? So that could have been the reality, right? Jordan Walsh could have joined the Lakers next year, and everybody would have said, "Oh my God, we have this guy on our bench the whole time," and now he's been kind of discovered. So that's where my head's at after this game, is that this is another Jordan Walsh game. His numbers through the last stretch here have been really, really impressive, and it feels very sustainable. It doesn't, like I tweeted out that it felt like a little bit of an insanity run, but a sustainable version of that. And the shooting is going to come back down to earth. He's not going to be an 80% career shooter. 3-point shooting is going to come down to earth for a lot of these guys. Some of these guys struggled tonight, but yeah, it just feels like they have something really special in their hands that might be a game changer for the years to come, especially if they're able to extend him. And obviously, that's the goal when you draft a guy. And he's really grown and grown up, starting to grow up kind of in Boston. So it would be a pretty cool story if he were to be the next great defender on the Celtics. Just want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of the season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. I attended finally my first football game. It was a great win, great Patriots win. A lot of fun to watch football in person and start to kind of get acclimated to that sport. And I was very impressed by what I saw. Drake May in particular, which you can pick more for him on rushing touchdowns, and passing yards. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, secure, safe, and secure. Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So yeah, that's where my head's at after this game, is I'm looking at the development and the play of somebody who, again, 5 or 6 weeks ago, we all ruled out. And it's also a reminder that right now, Baylor Shireman's playing more spot minutes. Like he might be due for a big stretch of basketball here as well. I mean, we saw him last March really find his flow and rhythm and confidence for the Celtics team, shooting lights out. I think he's been pretty good for them this season. I've been really impressed with Josh Minot for the most part in his minutes and opportunities. I think Ugo's come in and just played really, really hard. And even if he makes some mistakes or he's a step slow, like you can tell there's something really special brewing there. So again, the story of tonight is Sam Hauser really struggled. Peyton Pritchard went ice cold. Like there were a lot of different guys that just completely lost their rhythm and flow, and that's what happens when you miss that many threes in a row. They ended up shooting 28.6% from three on the night. They were shooting 47% from three at the half. So you're not going to win a lot of games that way. That's just inevitable. That's the reality of the NBA. There's a thin margin of error, even against teams that aren't among the elite teams in the league. You look at Milwaukee, they shot 45% from three. You look at some individual performers. Bobby Portis was 11 of 13. Kyle Kuzma was 13 of 17. Kevin Porter Jr. was 6 of 7. So, sorry, 6 of 10. Gary Trent was 5 of 9. Like a lot of these guys just had really big nights, but really the bulk of the damage was done by Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis, who don't typically go off for 31 and 27 apiece. So, that's the story of this game. You could, completely forget about it or spend a lot of time thinking about what went wrong. And the coaching staff will do that because Celtics are off on Friday and on Saturday, and then we have practice Sunday and big game at home against the Detroit Pistons on Monday. And so I'm sure they'll have plenty of time to cut up film and kind of to look at what went wrong and where they can be better defensively. And that's their job. And sometimes you do that in wins. And in this case, they'll do it in a pretty tough loss against a team that I'm sure everybody feels like they should have beaten. But from my standpoint, as someone who's trying as much as possible to look at the big picture, and it can be hard. It can be hard to not get too excited after wins or too disappointed after losses or to celebrate the play of somebody who's playing exceptionally well and to cast away somebody who comes in for the first time in weeks and looks bad. Like that happened as media members, like we have to try to mitigate the highs and lows of the season as much as we can, but also tell the story of those games. And the story of this game was like a really bad second half. They did a lot of good things in the first half, and the second half was just a wash. But the big story, in my opinion, as someone who was trying to kind of make sense of it after the final buzzer sounded, was they have a really special player on their hands here. I really do believe that. I've tried to not say like these crazy inflammatory things or to declare him the next big thing because it's just been like a month of basketball, 5 weeks, and so I wanna, like, be controlled here and not get carried away, but the things that I'm seeing just don't feel fluky at all. The way that he's able to get to loose balls, the way he's able to get in passing lanes. His build, obviously, a big reason why they drafted him. He has a wingspan that is longer than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown's by multiple inches, right? Like, that was a very noteworthy thing about him when he was first drafted. Those things are real, right? Maybe the shooting goes back down to earth. Maybe he's not finishing as well, but that's fine, right? That's right now, it just feels like the cherry on top. So I'll be really curious. Like a lot of times when I watch a game, sometimes when I watch with my friends who aren't reporters, they ask me like, "What are you watching?" And naturally, you're watching the ball a lot of times, right? You're watching the full big picture of the offense they're running, the defense they're running. But sometimes for like, so this is what I've been doing this recently. And if you go and rewatch a game, maybe you don't rewatch this one, but if you're gonna rewatch a game or just maybe next time you watch a game, just watch Jordan Walsh on defense. Watch the way he navigates screens. Watch the way he helps out. Watch the way he seems to be processing the game at such a high rate. Watch the way when he doesn't foul and he just keeps his hands up and just goes straight up, like how menacing of like a stature he has. How long and lanky and kind of well positioned he has been in recent weeks. So I've really enjoyed watching him on the defensive end. And again, tonight, 20 points on 8 of 10 shooting, 8 rebounds, 3 steals. Like he's just continuing to trend upwards. And I liked that this was another game where that trend continued because every game now it's felt like, okay, the bubble's going to burst and Jordan Walsh is going to go back to being 0 for 2 from the field. But the reality is that this team has really benefited from his offensive explosion, whether that was in DC or whether that was in LA or whether that was in Cleveland a week or two ago. Like that's been a big part of their success. And so as much as that can continue, the better. Again, a tough loss. We'll have coverage coming out of practice on Sunday where I'm sure that we'll revisit kind of what went wrong and what went right in the first half. And we'll hear from a couple players. We'll hear from Joe Mazzulla, and then we'll be back at TD Garden for the first time in over a week on Monday. It's been a long break here, 2 games in 11 days. I'm curious if Celtics fans, let me know if you've been watching something else in the meanwhile. Have you been enjoying the NBA Cup? There was a good Cup game if you watched the Marcus Smart versus Luke Cornett show last night or Thursday, Wednesday night, I should say, between the Lakers and the Spurs. That was a lot of fun. Former Celtics standing out. Marcus Smart was on fire. Luke Cornett had some big plays. Also got posterized by LeBron. So there's been some fun stuff to watch, but I think this break is a little too long as far as Celtics basketball goes. So I'll be excited next week where we get back in the regular swing of things, regular flow. But for now, thank you as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Let me know what you think about Jordan Walsh's continued evolution. Is there something you're noticing about his game that I'm not, or what's everybody's hot take for like what he could become? Let me know in the comment section if there's a player that you think Jordan Walsh could kind of turn into in the league. And obviously everybody's different, but Jaden McDaniels is one that comes to mind for me as a potential comparison. I don't know if that's about a good comparison, but yeah, let me know if you have one. As always, thanks for watching. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave a subscribe, and we'll be back soon with more coverage.